On this week's show, more drama off the track than honest means we have to redo all of our title permutations. Hello everyone, welcome to Back of the Grid. I am Chris, joined as always by Tom.
Hello.
Here to discuss, I feel like I've said this a lot this season, another hugely significant weekend for the World Championship.
Yeah. We expected it to be an interesting run-in. I don't think we expected the outcome that we got out of this weekend, but it's a good one for the title fight. That's
keeping things interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Not the best race.
No, definitely one of those where you wouldn't be forgiven if you just kind of dipped out for the entire middle section of the race.
Yeah.
Some interesting action in the middle bit, and then with 10 or 15 laps to go, some strategies and things started playing out a little bit for certain people. But yeah, a little bit of a look. I made a comment earlier in the office, which I'll repeat here because I think it is still semi-relevant, but if you're going to make a circuit where 50% of it is one giant straight, I don't think you're going to get that interesting racing as I'm sure many people will share a sentiment of the Vegas circuit, but like I say, when 50% of it is a straight, and I don't just mean like it's straight, I mean it's a single straight is what feels like half of the lap. Then I don't think it's gonna pan out all that well, to be honest. But yeah,
such a big straight. I think it technically falls outside of the FIA's own rules for track design. But
does it?
I think so? Yeah. But then again, the FIA's rules for track design are broken by most circuits in one way or another. They're guidelines.
They'll definitely have some sort of caveat that little bend of turn 13
counts as a corner, so it's not
kind of breaks it into two, but ultimately it's a straight from turn 12 to turn 14. So we should have a quick word on qualifying though, which was fantastic. That was such a fun session. And what I will say here is I have an interesting point on this, which I don't know if anyone else will share the sentiments of or not, but I feel like any other track that was that wet and they were running those wet tyres and it wasn't drying quickly, like what was happening, like there were corners that by the end of Q3 were still wet even when they were running on inters.
Yeah.
I think other sessions at other circuits get cancelled for those conditions. So why does it still go ahead here and not other places? All this session did for me is prove that in those very wet conditions, those tyres do actually work and sessions are possible. So why here and not anywhere else? And I know the answer to that question because F1 as a whole entity pins so much on this Las Vegas street race that it must go ahead and it must happen. But I say with confidence that I think that session is cancelled at other circuits. And that's maybe controversial, but that's how I feel.
You can probably count on one hand the number of full sessions we've had in recent years where people have been choosing to use the wet tyre and have actually carried on and finished the session without it being stopped. Really unusual in sort of recent years of stuff. You've got to sort of take your hats off just to the drivers. As soon as that session started, I was like, oh, this is going to be a long old time getting through this. And it just wasn't. Albon was the only one who crashed out, wasn't he?
He was the only person to have a significant accident, let's say. A few of them obviously lost it, went deep into corners, but he was the only one that you would say had damage in an accident. So yeah, I think generally off. I mean, there were a few other casualties in other scenarios, like there was the whole Hamilton situation, wasn't there? And Antonelli didn't have a great session in Q1,
Yeah.
and so like there were a few, let's call them big casualties to F1 as we normally sort of refer
Yeah.
to it. But
they
all in
kept
all,
out
it
the
was a
walls.
relatively clean session, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, super entertaining. I really enjoyed that one. I mean, let's just dive straight into the big stuff, I guess. McLaren, double disqualification.
I mean, we don't really need to talk about McLaren because they weren't in the race, right?
Yeah,
You can just move on and talk about the rest. Like they don't
right
they
down
don't
the bottom of
exist
the
in this
results.
race.
Why even bother?
They don't have any points. They officially didn't compete in the session, technically speaking. Like, just leave them.
As I'm sure everyone knows right now, both disqualified for excessive skid block wear. It was like the most minuscule of margins as well.
Yeah, I mean, on some of them, definitely. Like, there were some 0.01 millimeter measurements, I think. But then there were others that were well within tolerance of being like beyond the limit. So like some 0.2s in there and stuff. And at the end of the day, it's like there has to be 9 millimeters left on each skid block, and they were all 8 point something in some regard. Like, yes, it's not the biggest margin that people have breached the rule by, but the rule is the rule.
Yeah, and we've seen this before with, wings being out of spec and stuff, and it's like, you can argue all you want that is a fraction of a millimeter making a difference. It's probably not, but the rule is, the line has to be drawn somewhere, and that's where the line is. And yeah, McLaren just got it wrong. Like, so that they said they got a lot more porpoising than they expected, and they argued that Friday being so wet and sort of one of the practice sessions being cut short as well, sort of limited their opportunity to identify and do anything about that problem. But the FIA said there's not like provision within the rules to do anything other than disqualify you. Like, the rules are the rules on that. However it came about, that is the rules.
8 other cars that finished inside the top 10 didn't breach the same rule. So
exactly,
no dice.
And it's interesting because it comes off the back of and we didn't talk about this in Brazil because it was kind of quite a late breaking thing, but some teams raise suspicions of other teams basically doing something around heating of the skid blocks, which expanded the material and allowed them to run the cars lower than they otherwise would. There's nothing official has been said, but supposedly Joe Bauer, the FIA technical delegate, checked a bunch of cars. I think it was either after the sprint or after qualifying, and discovered some teams running devices on the floor of the cars that could be used to heat up these skid blocks, and told teams they had to remove them. And McLaren were supposedly extremely close to breaking this skid block wear rule in Brazil as well. Like, very, very close to there as well. So are all those things linked? There's a good chance they are. But it's... I don't know. It feels like... I know McLaren they're coming to a circuit where they have struggled in the last couple of years. Like, of the running last year when they were the form of the field, this was the worst circuit for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're keeping that tradition going at least.
Well, yeah, that's for sure.
There is that.
But to run with... Presumably they've chosen to still really push the margins, chasing performance, and it feels like... It's easy to say in hindsight, but it feels like a risk too far, doesn't it, in their position?
It is, but I agree with that last point, which is the position that they're in. Do you risk disqualification by running something that you know could come back and bite you? Or do you make adjustments to deal with that and risk finishing 4th and 5th? I mean, you risk finishing 4th and 5th, right? Like, you risk not being able to get the setup quite point, right, but getting half decent points. That's what you risk. You don't risk what they have. And I know there was a lot of talk about, Lando's lift and coast towards the end and all that time he dropped back from Max being to do with fuel saving and having enough for a sample. But I would say it's quite possibly linked to this, and there's something that they can see in terms of the wear that they know that this is going to be a problem, and it's more, the lift and coast is more about not putting the force through the car that gets it close to the floor and essentially has any more wear. But there was then obviously some counters to that of like saying, well, they didn't have Piastri doing the same thing. It's like, well, at the time, Piastri was a little bit more fighting for position than, like, Lando had a buffer, essentially. He wasn't realistically going to catch Max because Max could match his pace, and he had a nice big buffer back to Russell. So he had the luxury of being able to slow right down in order to try and preserve the blocks, if that was the case. Oscar had a bit more of a fight going on with Leclerc behind him and Antonelli in front of him. So he kind of just had to keep pushing and keep fighting, because if he'd have slowed down, he'd have lost the places that were getting in the points anyway, and thus, regardless of the skid block situation, would have probably made it a pointless result anyway. So just slightly different scenarios there, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, like, the McLarens were noticeably sparking more than most cars if you go back and look at it. Like, they were clearly running them very low. Like, it's whether it's them pushing the limits or just the way they've set the car and they didn't realise this was even a possibility, it's still a heck of a mistake to make at this point in the championship, and it suddenly makes what was, Norris, I think before this qualification, he was coming away from this with like a 40-odd point lead over Verstappen. It's now 24 points. It's now less than a win. Still very much in Norris's own hands. He's still clearly the favourite, but it's trickier than it was for sure for him.
Yeah, and from Piastri's perspective, it puts Max exactly level with him as well. Now, I know Piastri walks away from this technically close to Norris than he was with the result, so it does kind of favour Piastri a little bit in that sense.
Weirdly, yeah.
But it puts Max bang level with Piastri, which is what he doesn't want, because it brings him right into the picture. So it's a little bit of a double-edged situation for Piastri, really, and just a problem in general for Norris. And Max and Red Bull are just probably rubbing their hands together. Like, it's perfect for them. Like, we knew that it needed a little bit of intervention realistically to go his way. Like, even if he won every single session, like when I include the sprint in that, like 3 races and a sprint, even if he'd won every single thing, he still needed a little bit of like luck to intervene in his way and see the McLarens finish down the order a couple of times. I mean, this is like literally exactly what he needed. Is like 2 non-scoring results for them, like 1 for each car. It makes the last couple of events just tantalising now. Like,
it really does.
It looked potentially doable before, but relied on the McLarens having bad weekends. Now it's like literally, well, not quite literally, but if he wins all 3 sessions that we have in terms of the 2 races and the sprint, it doesn't take much in terms of like Lando's results for it to suddenly, like, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the maths at some point later on, but essentially, like, winning the sessions could be enough for Max.
It's a real test of McLaren and the drivers now, because like, Norris especially has shown some real like fortitude in this like running. Like, he's really been on top of his game, but this setback, like, he needs to really keep his head. And to be fair, like, we said this after Canada, which was also a massive setback for him, and he followed up with a win and has looked pretty good for the second half of the season. But big setback for them, big test for the next couple of weekends.
I think probably the big thing for him is I don't think he'll lose any confidence from his own performance, because I'd say he's relatively happy with that, generally speaking. I would say that the issue might come from how high they need to set the car up to avoid this happening in the next 2 races, and does that affect the performance that means he can get the best out of it? Does that ruin that little bit of a run of form he's been on? One thing I will say that's ended up going a little bit under the radar because of this, is I will say that I think that Lando Norris's behaviour at the start of the race was very questionable and probably only went unchecked because of the fact that he caused himself to run deep and lose 2 places anyway. But that move across the front of Max was very questionable for me from Lando. And I was sat there watching that and just saying, well, you've got what you deserved in terms of having to run deep and lose the 2 places. But part of me is like, that is the catalyst for everything that goes on behind them. I mean, I know a little bit of it is people being on the inside, on the dirty track and underestimating braking. But there's a lot of people who check up earlier than they normally would because of Max having to back out of it because of Norris coming. Like, it's almost like a ripple effect down the grid going into turn 1. And it leads to, like, people literally going out of the race. And it, not entirely, but a factor in that, I think, is the way that Lando chops across Max the way he does and causes Max to have to back out of it so suddenly. Like, I think he's lucky that that's not been looked at as even just sort of a bit of a stern speaking to from stewards post-race or something. And this whole thing of him running deep and losing the places and then being disqualified anyway has kind of smoke and mirrored that a little bit, and it's kind of gone untalked about and gone under the radar. But I do think that if he does anything like that in the next 2 races, it's going to cause trouble, and he will come out worse off for it. He needs to be very careful with stuff like that.
I was just finding what David Coulthard said about it, because it was excellent. He said, Lando Norris tried to play Max Verstappen at his own game. The problem is he doesn't know the rules of that game.
Well put, David. Well put.
Yeah, very good.
I do like DC when it comes to stuff like that. Like, he's got very good, like, sort of banter commentary, hasn't he, in that regard?
He's still got some good one-liners in him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Max just, once he had got past Norris at turn 1, he basically was gone, wasn't he? Like, no one
never looked
could
back.
touch him. That was a vintage Verstappen win from the front. There's not even much more to say about him, is there, other than he was extremely good and extremely quick.
I mean, I think even if it wasn't for Lando making the mistake after trying to chop him off, I think Max would have still got past him at some point. I think that was Max's race to lose, even though he wasn't starting on pole, realistically. So, yeah, I think realistically just doing what he needs to do to win the title.
Yeah.
Actually keeping himself out of trouble wherever he can and just going and winning the race and just putting in the performances.
Yeah.
And it's why he's where he is in terms of being a 4-time world champion, and it's why he's now within a race win of leading the championship if things don't go right for Norris in the next couple of weekends. Just
doing his own thing, letting McLaren be their own worst enemy, basically.
Yeah. Best thing you can do.
The actual podium didn't look like this, but the official race results podium was completed by the 2 Mercedes. I mean, Russell was looking good on the run into qualifying. He'd like top practice 3, but didn't quite come together for him in those conditions. He ended up starting 4th behind Sainz. And of course, Antonelli had a disaster in qualifying and started down in 17th. However, Russell took 2nd at the start. Didn't have the pace to keep Norris behind, but he sort of kind of a race of his own, wasn't he? He wasn't really... didn't have Norris's pace, didn't really have anyone closer behind.
There was a bit of a weird thing going on with Russell, though. They had this whole steering problem, which was, I think, something to do with the tyres, and it was maybe flat-spotted and unsettling the car, but it obviously wasn't worth the risk to pit and come off it completely. But it caused him to lose a lot of pace because for a lot of the race, Russell was pretty much with Verstappen. Like, he wasn't... don't get me wrong, he wasn't on his gearbox, but he was close enough that it was looking like second was his. And then later in the race, he started mentioning these issues with steering and was clearly managing a bit of something. And that is probably what ultimately led to Norris being able to overtake him. And because he announced himself on the radio that it isn't worth fighting this. Like, I can't keep him behind me. It's better that I'll just let him through and make sure third's solid. Yeah. But ultimately becomes second anyway with the disqualification. So he gets the position. And Antonelli, a very deserved podium in my eyes after that stint that he put in. For
what a drive.
48 laps on the hards with guys behind him, legit keeping them behind him on pace, despite them being on like 20 lap younger tyres, maybe even more than that, 30 lap younger tyres potentially.
Easily.
So, yeah. And the weird thing is how much pace he still had at the end.
Yeah.
So they got to like somewhere between 5 and 10 laps to go, and they clearly said, right, Kimi, you've done a great job of keeping them behind you. We've got X number of laps left. Let's see if we can get away from them. Like, you've been holding back. Hold back no more. And he just like disappeared. And
so
much
unexpected.
So he went from having Leclerc and Piastri within a second of him because they were like Piastri was like half a second behind Antonelli and Leclerc was then half a second behind him. He went from that scenario to gapping Leclerc in a way that the penalty didn't put him behind Leclerc. He essentially made 5 seconds on Leclerc across between 5 and 7 laps or something at the end of the race. It was insane. I don't like. He's had some good drives in the back end of this season and gotten on the podium a couple of times, but I will probably say that is one of his better, if not his best so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Managing those tyres and then still having the life in them to do what he did at the end. Brilliant. Brilliant.
So good. And as you say, even with that 5-second penalty for the jump start, he still it was like less than 2/10 ahead of Leclerc.
Even that feels a little harsh. Like
it does, yeah.
That he got that penalty in the first place, because you watch the onboard and again, it's kind of like the McLaren scenario. Rules are rules, and he is ever so slightly creeping forward, just like millimeters, but he is ever so slightly moving just before the lights go out, and it is ultimately it's a fair penalty in exactly the same way that disqualifications from McLaren are fair penalties, because no matter if it's like 0.1 millimeters that he's rolled forward, he's ultimately moved and triggered his sensor, and it is so minute and so small that you can barely see it, but it does happen, and it is a legit penalty. But it didn't put him off, did it? And like obviously the VSC kind of worked in his favour and got him off the softs quickly, but still to put in a 48 lap stint on the hards and still have the pace in him at the end, just absolutely awesome from Kimi this weekend. Yeah. Well, at least in the race.
And I know the strategy comes into it, and there was like Russell managing issues, but even so, he started 17th.
Yeah.
And he's crossed the line 2 seconds behind his teammate who started 4th. Like that's something. Like Russell's going to have to really watch his back next season, Like
I think if he keeps this form going and he keeps building on it like he has been, you're right. Russell will have to be looking over his shoulder, and to be fair, might be looking ahead of him because Antonelli is ahead of him at that point.
Because we've had all this like new contract drama with Russell this year, and he's clearly trying to like establish himself as the new Mercedes #1 driver in Hamilton's absence.
Yeah.
Like if Antonelli keeps this form up next year, he's going to really give him a run for his money, and that's going to leave Russell's career in a very interesting place because Antonelli is just going from strength to strength at the moment,
and he's still just super impressed. Still but a boy.
I know.
So young.
It puts him as well. That makes it three podiums for him this year. Puts him in a very small club of drivers who have 3 or more podiums in their debut season. So he's equaled Senna, who also had 3. Montoya and Regazzoni had 4 apiece in their debut seasons. Jackie Stewart had 5.
Hamilton
and then jumped all the way up to Villeneuve had 11 and Hamilton had 12. Yeah. But yeah, good company he finds himself in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of Hamilton, meanwhile over at Ferrari, where do we begin? Just a catalogue of errors this weekend. Hamilton out in Q1. He got a bollard stuck under his car at one point.
Yeah.
Which, the onboard from that's bizarre. He just was like, oh, the corner's in 50 metres. I'll just turn in now. And just like straight across the bollard, which is bizarre. Like, the points the team was sending them out just didn't seem to sync with the rest of the drivers, and that would be out of sync there. And then, I think worst of all, he crossed the line in time to have another lap, and the team just didn't give him that information, so he backed off. Like, just not good enough all around there, really.
Not a great weekend for him generally. The recovery wasn't too bad, but it wasn't.
Even then, the team
style,
just didn't let him execute what he probably could have done. Like he did the alternative hard to medium strategy. They pitted him much earlier than they probably wanted to try and undercut Hulkenberg. But then it was a slow stop, and they didn't tell him he'd be fighting Alonso at the pit exit. So he lost a ton of time there.
Yeah.
And just ended up stuck behind Hulkenberg for even longer. It took him ages to get by. Like,
Ferrari gonna Ferrari.
Yeah, really, really poor. And then on the other side, Leclerc's car just decided it had enough during qualifying and turned itself off at one point. Which, have you seen the full onboard and team radio from that?
From which bit, sorry?
When Leclerc's car just turned itself off in qualifying when he had a big slide.
Was that when he lost the car down into turn 14 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
And spun it? I assumed it was just anti-stall. I didn't realise.
Yeah, so it was anti-stall, but the engine fully switched itself off. And Leclerc on the radio, don't know what's happened there. The car switched itself off. Absolute silence from the team. So he turns it back on himself and starts driving off. And then on the radios, they're like, try and turn it back on. Like, the moment's passed. Where were you? Are you not paying attention? It's so frustrating to watch.
I'm going to have to go back and check that, because I didn't notice that bit of it.
So bad. Leclerc had decent race pace, but I think on the second stint on the hards, he just kind of faded a bit. And couldn't even get close enough to Antonelli to benefit from that penalty. Just so poor. So poor from them. Really frustrating.
And in the general update, I believe Max Verstappen is now 15 points away from single-handedly beating the Ferraris combined. When I was doing my maths earlier, it's somewhere in that ballpark anyway. Because
oh my goodness,
Red Bull are ahead of them, but I think 28 of those points are technically Yuki Tsunoda. But they're something like 13 points ahead, and 28 are Tsunoda. So that leaves about 15 that Max needs ahead of the Ferraris, which at this rate he's going to do. So by the end of the season, Max will have single-handedly beaten Ferraris. I'm fairly confident in that.
It's certainly looking that way.
Which is crazy. Considering where that car was as well at one point in the season, considering where the Red Bull was through that middle part of the season, for Max to have come away and still beat both Ferraris combined is ridiculous.
Yeah. Quick word on Williams. Sainz, fantastic in qualifying again. His form at the moment is so good. It's like Williams just seem to only be able to have one informed driver at the moment, don't they? When he's going well for one, he's going badly for the other. Sainz, I would say, probably maximised what that car was capable of. He lost places to Mercedes and Leclerc, but I don't think you can really begrudge him that too much. Super quick, really impressive. And then on the other side, Albon, as we said, was the only one to have a crash in qualifying. Then he picks up a penalty in the race for contact with Hamilton. Very similar to the penalty that Hamilton got in Brazil, actually, kind of swiping someone and losing a bit of your own wing.
Yeah.
He also had a radio failure, which stopped him being able to tell the team, I need a new front wing, and they apparently didn't notice, because there's an onboard of him coming into the pits during the virtual safety car. Yeah, and he's pointing at the front of his car because they're not putting a new wing on it.
And then, like, the engineer just like, yeah, man, go. Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. Like, he had no comms from them and no comms to them, so he couldn't tell them anything that was going on, and they couldn't keep him up to date. I think there was something else that, well, he knew he'd got damage, he just didn't know to what extent, but he couldn't radio in, and they couldn't obviously tell him whatever it is, which is weird because usually the team are pretty good at picking up on like an aero performance change and being able to tell the driver, saying like, you know, we've picked up this damage, and like, so even though they couldn't talk to him directly, you'd have thought they would have known that there was damage on the front wing to at least be looking at it as it came in and be ready to have to change it. But yeah, it just ended up being a bit of a weird one for him, and they ultimately ended up retiring it, didn't they, as well?
Yeah. I mean, because there's been so many times through history where you've had teams ask a driver if their front wing's okay, and the driver's been like, I don't know, can't see it, you're going to have to tell me. So you'd think that'd be something the team would be looking for. Yeah.
Do you know what's weird with this, by the way? At what point did he serve his penalty? Because he had his penalty given to him. I never then saw him serve the penalty. And weirdly, as he retired, a little message popped up on the screen saying, Car 23 has served its 5-second penalty. But
so he
was retiring at the time that message popped up. So I don't know where he served the 5 seconds.
So he did, throughout the race, he did 2 one-lap stints. So he started on the hards, pitted for mediums, and immediately came back in and swapped to hards again on lap, what would have been lap 13, 14. And then just before he retired, he did another 1-lap stint on mediums. So they must have come in, done the penalty, stuck him on some mediums, and sent him out for a lap to retire. So,
got you. Okay.
One of the many things that wasn't shown on the TV broadcast this weekend.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I saw him being pushed back into the garage, and then the thing popped up saying he has served his 5-second penalty. And I was like, when? It's just like they're going, yeah, it's fine. They waited 5 seconds before wheeling him into the garage. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, what? Well, yeah. There you go.
Hadjar and Hulkenberg both did decent points as well. Like,
all right.
Fairly quiet races for them. Sauber did well to keep Hulkenberg ahead of Hamilton through that pit phase.
Yeah.
And then Haas really benefited from the disqualifications as well. They finished 11th and 12th, but got moved up into the points. And those points actually move Haas ahead of Aston Martin in the championship, now up into 7th place, because, man, Aston were a disappointment. Yeah. They love those wet conditions. I mean, we know Stroll always comes to life in, like, tricky wet conditions like that. Although they decided to stick him on Inters, didn't they? He was the first to switch to Inters, and it did not work out for him at all.
Yeah, it was weird, though, because the graphics genuinely couldn't decide what he was on.
No, so they're all over the place.
At one point, he said he was on Inters. Then it went back to him saying he was on wets. And then he was literally on Inters because you could see the green stripe, and it changed again. Unless he literally went out for a lap on Inters, went, no, it's too soon, went back to wets for a lap or two, and then went, okay, I'm going to try again now it's cleared up even more. And went, like, so it's possible the graphics were actually right. But again, one of the things that just wasn't really being covered. And I know there's a lot going on in quali, but you'd have thought like somebody actually giving that a go would maybe be something you'd focus on. And
you would think so.
See how the lap's panning out, and it just never seemed to happen. So either the graphics were wrong, or they just weren't bothered about focusing on it because it's just Lance Stroll.
Yeah, but yeah, they both made it through to Q3, didn't they, the Astons? But then they just plummeted.
I mean, Stroll's issue was getting smashed into the back of by one of many people getting concertinaed together due to the whole thing at turn one. Just completely destroyed the rear of the car, and he could barely get it back. So it was an instant DNF. And then maybe it was Bortoleto that hit him, or it could be one of the others. I'm not sure, but Bortoleto ultimately retired as well, didn't he? Not long after.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Bortoleto. That was bad.
Bortoleto. So while we say that Lance Stroll always looks like he's on the F1 game when it's wet and just like keeps driving the same way he always does, and it looks like he's got traction control on in the F1 game. in the same vein, Bortoleto decided he was going to approach turn one like it was the F1 game, and barging people out of the way is acceptable into turn one, and ended there. But again, don't know if he's had a talking to yet or will have a talking to, but wouldn't be surprised if he picks up a grid penalty for
He
Qatar.
does indeed have a 5-place penalty in Qatar. Someone in our Discord said it's like he was trying to recreate Spa 2012, which was when Grosjean just tumbled over the top of half the field at turn one.
I mean, in terms of the way he approached the corner, it wasn't far off.
It was very similar,
yeah.
Let's go through the motions. Driver of the day.
I am wholeheartedly saying Kimi Antonelli, and I'm also
100%
very disappointed that he wasn't even in the top 3 of the photo.
I know.
Like, what race were people watching, man? Like,
sort it out, people.
Don't get me wrong. Like, Max is doing his thing and disappearing at the front, but I think second and third were Leclerc and Hamilton. Like,
yeah, something like that.
Why?
Really weird.
Leclerc couldn't get past Piastri or Antonelli, and then got gapped by him by 5 seconds over 5 laps. Why is that deserving of driver of the day? And Hamilton did okay and recovered for some points, but he's in a Ferrari.
Nothing
He
special.
should be like doing better than that. Like, yeah, it's just a weird one, but Kimi all day for me. Don't care what Reddit says. Kimi.
Move of the day is going to be a struggle.
So before the disqualifications, I was going to suggest that the move of the day should actually be the undercut that McLaren set up for Piastri.
Yeah.
Because it essentially leapfrogged him beyond Leclerc and somebody else. I forgot who the other one was. I've genuinely forgot now. But it basically leapfrogged him above 2 people, and those 2 people, when they pitted, were like, how are we now behind Oscar Piastri?
Yeah.
And it was one of those gambles where, yes, his tyres were then 3 laps older than people like Leclerc, but it was a good enough tyre for the life on the hard that it didn't really make a difference, and it didn't compromise him in terms of being able to defend. I mean, yes, he got disqualified, but ultimately, the undercut was a great move from McLaren, realistically, I think.
It was Leclerc and Hadjar, maybe, I think he got with the undercut.
Maybe. I generally can't remember who the other one was, but there were 2 cars that basically were probably looking to the race engineers and the strategy team and saying, how is he now ahead of us? But a 3-lap undercut was pretty big. Like I feel like it was a bit of a bold move of, we need to get in some air, some cleaner air, and just get some good laps in and gap in order to undercut. And it worked.
Very well
like, it was a really, really good move, in my opinion. Better than most of the on-track overtakes that were just done back before the apex of turn 14 with DRS.
I mean, part of my pre-podcast prep is always searching Discord for the word move, basically, to see what people
throw it out during the event.
Yeah, people mention it during the race chat.
And
I can find one comment, which is me saying move of the day for Alonso. That's about 43 minutes into the race. I've watched both the short and extended highlights, and I cannot find whatever that was. To be fair, this was at 4:45 in the morning, so I might have just been seeing things. But I mean, honestly, overtaking wise,
is that around the time he was battling with Hamilton? Maybe a good move on Hamilton, because they went wheel to wheel a little bit, didn't they? But I can't remember if there was like a really stunning overtake. There was a little bit of a battle between the 2 of them, like midway through the race, and that's kind of in that ballpark of time zone.
He was behind Behrman for a while. Honestly, even with that, I'm kind of tempted to go with you and just say that undercut, because that was actually
fine by me.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
And then finally...
Honestly, what the f*** are we doing here?
This one might be the busier segment of the three.
This is busy, yeah. I mean, we mentioned Bortoletto already. That was just pretty shocking at the start. Lawson's start as well. Like, Piastri was lucky not to be out on the spot.
Yeah,
the way Lawson steamed in. It was just wheel-to-wheel contact, luckily, wasn't it?
Yeah. Not that dissimilar to Piastri into Antonelli previous race, though, technically.
Yeah,
at the restart.
Yeah, it's
very similar move. So technically, Lawson should be getting a penalty. Just saying, if Piastri got a penalty, why is Lawson not getting a penalty? Same thing.
Yeah, true.
There you go. See, no one can say I don't try and defend everyone at some point. When
we're equal opportunities here.
Yeah.
I mean, we've mentioned the TV direction missing things. They also just didn't show the championship leader limping around the last few laps and being caught at a rate of knots when Norris backed right off. They were just showing us anything but that. And it's like, you could watch the gap getting smaller and smaller, and they just weren't showing us.
The worst bit of that, I think, I'm sure it was this. You reminded me of something that I found myself like shouting at the TV whilst I was watching it live. And I'm sure it was that. It could have been a slightly different scenario, but I'm sure it was when Norris was just dropping time hand over fist. And they were showing on the timing tower, they were showing the number of places gained and lost since the start. You know, like they do the little green and red arrows and show you how many places they've had. And it was like they were literally in commentary going on and on and on about how Norris is losing time, Norris has been asked to lift and coast, Norris this, Norris that, Russell's catching him up, he's now 15 seconds away from Verstappen, he's falling backwards. And for like what felt like 3 laps, they were just showing this plus and minus position. I'm like, show the times. Your commentary team are literally talking about the times. Show me the times. They're
literally telling you what to show.
I know where everybody is in positions. I don't care. Show me the times. And it was just like, it was so frustrating. It literally had me shouting that at the TV. I was so frustrated. But that's not definitely the worst thing of the weekend for WTFs. It was just one of those moments.
For a few races in a row, they really seem to have upped their game with the TV broadcast, and then this weekend it's just fallen apart again.
I've got 2 more random WTFs for you that I don't think are on this list.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, wait, no, one of them is. You've put Disney Dance, so that'll probably be what I'm about to get to. Randomly having David Coulthard throw to Mickey Mouse to do a Fantasia kind of throwback montage with the Bellagio fountains. Honestly... What the F are we doing here? Like, what is that? Do you know I realised it is, though? And this shows how often I turn Las Vegas off the moment they cross the line. It's because they drive all the way to the Bellagio fountains to do the interview, and then the podium is all the way back at the start-finish line.
It takes forever.
So that's and genuinely, that just shows that the last 2 years or whatever it's been that we've been there, as soon as the race is over, I've turned off the coverage. Because I didn't even realise that they drove all the way to Bellagio and then back. I assumed when they were saying that they were going to Bellagio and they always have the car of awkward, like the limousine of awkward, instead of the room of awkward.
Yeah.
I always just assumed they did the podium at Bellagio alongside where they did the interviews, but they don't. They go back. And I'm just like, why?
Like, at that point, just do the podium there as well. And they always... have some special car that seems to be the slowest vehicle they can possibly find to take them there in as well.
Terry Crews driving the pink Cadillac of Lego.
Yeah. I mean, it's great, except for how long it takes. It's like...
I'll tell you what was really weird as well during that. Just like something, again, just off the cuff that I noticed that was putting me about. But the audio and the video were just so out of sync. It was like, it looked like Max Verstappen was doing impressions of George Russell because you could hear George Russell talking, but it was Max Verstappen's lips moving, and I was like, "That is a good impression." And then you just randomly hear Terry Crews say something, and then about 5 seconds later, it had panned to Terry Crews say it. It was just, why is this so out of sync? It was just, it was so weird.
Because they always, the room of awkward's always shown on a delay so they can mute any swearing.
Yeah,
and they seem to have been trying to do that with the car, but they'd got the audio delayed and not the video or something.
Yeah, it was weird.
And then they still managed to have Lando swearing during the interviews anyway, so...
Was funny. I mean, there's an argument out there that I've seen that this is the reason they've been disqualified, because swearing is not allowed on the F1 podium. So
yeah, that instant
both your
disqualification.
cars will be disqualified if such an occurrence happens. Even if that means we have to manually shave down your skid blocks ourselves, you will be disqualified.
Straight to jail.
Conspiracy Central.
Right. It's going to have to be a serious one this week, though, because there are two things.
There's two serious ones.
Two things that happened this weekend that were just unacceptably bad. So the first one was in the F1 Academy race, where on the formation lap, someone had crashed down the main straight, down the strip. And as the safety car was leading them back down, one of the recovery vehicles just pulled straight across the track. It was, luckily there was like a bit of distance between it and like the safety car and the train, but the safety car still had to like get on the brakes, and everybody behind had to check up. Like, just, you can't be doing that. It's bad enough having recovery vehicles on a live track, but to just pull out like that clearly without looking is ridiculous.
Yeah, it almost started trying to do like a weird little U-turn or something, didn't it? It was weird what it was doing. Like, it just, yeah, very bad considering the accidents that we've had in this sport in the past that lead to why we have things like virtual safety cars and so on and so forth, and why we're a lot stricter about red flagging sessions, because we need recovery vehicles on track. It's a bad scenario in the first place of having that vehicle on the track as the train of cars behind the safety car is about to come past, as you say, but to then have it just randomly decide, oh no, I'm just going to pull into the middle of the track to do a little U-turn. Like, no. Yeah, but then they didn't even learn from that, because during the race in the VSC, we had marshals in the runoff area of turn one, essentially running away from the track whilst the field are coming towards them. And I know they're under VSC, so they're driving under a delta and a caution, but they're still doing like 100 mile an hour or something, aren't they, at that point? I can't remember what they exactly limited to, but it's enough to essentially kill somebody if they do unfortunately make contact with them. Like, it is not a scenario that they should have been anywhere near. And it's also not like we had a completely spread out field at that point. Like, it was the end of lap 1 or lap 2 when it came out, so they were bunched up together. It should have been very, very possible to have made marshals aware that they need to leave the circuit, even if just temporarily, whilst they got to the back straight that then comes round onto the start-finish straight. Like, it just... I hate seeing scenarios like both those, because it instantly gives you flashbacks of serious accidents that we've seen where people have either been seriously injured or lost their lives. And it sounds like really, I don't know, pedantic to be pointing stuff like this out to some people maybe, but we have seen serious accidents from both those kinds of scenarios before. And to have two in such close proximity and have not learned from the first one and still have something so bad, like, it's just one of those things where whoever's running marshalling at Vegas should not be doing it again in the future. Whoever it was should not be doing it at a future Grand Prix, in my opinion.
No. And of course the FIA have said it's fine. They're not worried it was all gravy. Because people in Discord are saying that it wasn't even under VSC, it was under double wave yellow.
I mean, that's even worse.
Yeah.
That's even worse if that's the way it timed out.
Funnily enough, the race highlights video doesn't show that, so I can't double check it. Imagine that.
Yeah, that just slam dunk shows why it shouldn't be happening. Like, it's even worse if that's the case, like I say.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, that seals that one, doesn't it? The marshal guidance or direction, whatever you want to call it. Shall I go more light-hearted and talk us about Preds?
Yeah, tell us how badly we've done.
Yeah, we didn't do too bad between me and you for once. We both got, so this is a bit of a tricky situation to cover. So the way that predictions work is the number of finishes will always be the number of vehicles that finish the race. So technically the McLaren's are counted within that, giving us 17 finishes. However, positions and results are based after disqualification. So you've got like how many cars will finish the race, which the McLarens did. However, anything to do with positions and stuff like that will be considered after any disqualifications or penalties. It's all in the rules. Go check it. It's not. I'm just making this up, just so me and Chris can have points. This is legit the rules. So finishes is 17. Chris and I both achieve a point for that. Random driver George Russell technically finishes second. Therefore, we both get a point for that. And I also managed to worm my way into a point by putting some faith in Max winning the race. So 3 for me, 2 for Chris.
I'd also like to take a sort of not a bonus point, but just like a. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, I put a lot of faith in Antonelli this weekend. He wasn't quite as good as pole and a win, but still, I feel like my Antonelli faith was paid off, at least partially.
And if he'd actually qualified decently, he probably would have been in contention for the win, at least. Or at least he'd have been a lot closer to it. In terms of overall, we did have people score slightly better than my 3. We had James Donoghue and Lisa Hersing-Smith, who both scored 4 points. They both are thankful of the way the rules work because they have number of finishes 17 and George Russell in second. They both got Lance Stroll down as first DNF, so that worked in their favour. And then James went double Max, so kind of got 1 point out of 2 there, and Lisa went double Lando, so again got 1 point out of the 2 there. So that's kind of how that works. But they were the only 2 to score 4 this week. What this weekend has done, though, is put us in a 3-way tie at the top of the predictions leaderboard. So we have Elijah Smith, Michael Labaldus, and Ben Hines, who have all been pretty close over the last few races, but now they are literally tied at the top for 28 points each. So it's becoming much like the Real World Championship, where someone's maybe going to sneak up late here and take this from people who have maybe been at the top, feeling comfortable for a while. So if you want to find out where you are in all that, check out your results, etc., head to backofthegrid.com, and you can even register if you've not played before. We'll get to Qatar in a moment, but it's worth registering to play for Qatar and Abu Dhabi, because if you do manage to get 5 out of 5 in a perfect weekend, you will win a prize. So go ahead and get involved if you want to do that. Quick stop off to F1 Fantasy. Our winner this week was 44th Gear with 311 points. And over in GridRival, Bruce MCL had 1,065 points. Those are after adjustments as well. I did go check because I wrote these down initially and then I had to go check. But I think luckily it stayed the same for everyone. It didn't really affect anyone too much, the adjustments. So that is that. Again, Fantasy Leagues, if you want to get involved, head to backofthegrid.com. There is information on those there as well. Do you want to run us through a little bit of a Qatar situational update in terms of where we're going to be, and then we'll do some quick predictions for that?
It's a good point, I think, to talk about title permutations.
Of course.
And as I said earlier, things are still very much in Lando Norris's hands. As is probably obvious to state, if he leaves Qatar with a 26-point gap to Piastri and or Verstappen, he is champion because they can only score 25.
Done.
Which basically means, because he's 24 ahead of them now, he needs to outscore both of them by 2 points across the sprint and Grand Prix combined. Should be doable, but given how this season's gone, who knows?
Don't put all your eggs in that basket.
If he ends up only outscoring them by 1 point, which means he would be 25 points ahead, then we get into a tie being possible and working things out on countback, which gets very, very complicated. We'll worry about that if the situation comes up.
Let's get through Qatar first.
Yeah. And then obviously, as for Piastri and Verstappen, they just need Norris to drop some major points here to have a chance. But yeah, the main thing we're looking for is Norris outscoring Piastri and Verstappen by 2 points. That is his target this weekend.
Yeah. So essentially doable for him to wrap it up this weekend, despite it being close. It's essentially that's possible.
That's it. So, do we think it's going to happen? Shall we predict it?
Shall we predict it? I mean, I'm probably going to say something that is no shock or surprise to anyone. and I'm going to go with a double Max here just to open the bidding. I'm going Max on pole, well, fastest in Q3, and Max for the win. I think this is where my loyalties lie right now. I am all in on Verstappen just winning the whole thing, and I can add, well, permutations wise, like Lando needs to be out off the podium once or twice. I think it works out, but
yes,
I think Max can definitely do the absolute minimum he needs to do, which is win what's left. I think he's more than capable of doing that, and with the way he's been form wise, that's where I'm putting my money. Max to just win everything that's left. It's then in the fate of the racing gods as to whether Lando drops enough points to actually send it Max's way overall.
Yeah, I think Lando is going to do it this weekend.
Okay.
He's definitely my race winner.
Okay, but maybe not your top qualifier.
I think I might say Verstappen because he just has a habit of pulling off these pole positions.
You just want to hedge your bets. That's all that is.
A little bit, yes.
Okay, I'm going to make you go first on first DNF, seeing as how I threw the other two out there instantly.
I'm going to go for a driver on a bad run right now, Alex Albon.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to go with like Bortoletto because he's obviously had some bad weekends, and first DNF in Brazil, almost first DNF this weekend. I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to stick with it. It was where my gut was going, so I'm just going to stick with it. I mean, hopefully not, but I'm going with it. Number of finishes. So the last couple of races we've had here have actually been quite high. High for retirements.
Yes, high number of retirements. Yeah.
So we've got, I think 2023 we had 17 finishes and
15 last year.
15 last year. So I'm going to split the difference and say 16 this year.
Yeah, that feels like the right ballpark. I mean, it's a test of the drivers and the cars given the heat there. I haven't seen a forecast, but I assume it's going to be very hot as it normally is. I'm going to say 15 again, I think. I'm going to go big with it.
15, okay. And then I need to draw this week's random driver, and that is... Franco Colapinto. That's tough.
Who actually has been at this circuit before, because he had made his debut by this point last year.
Retired, though. Lap 1 incident with...
Didn't even make a lap.
Ocon?
Yes.
I believe. I mean, where were they in Vegas? He wasn't. He was back at the last on the road, wasn't he, in Vegas as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm going to go with that philosophy. I'm going to stick with last on the road and say 16th. There we go.
I'm going to say he's going to be one of the retirements, so I'm going to put him 18th.
Okay. Right. That is us. Is worth noting this weekend is a sprint weekend. So if you are looking at entering, please make sure you submit your predictions before sprint qualifying starts, which is, I believe, 5:30 UK time on the Friday. Please, if anyone is available to fact check me on that, but I believe that's about right.
I'm on it. I'm checking.
Thanks. Yeah, make sure you submit your predictions before sprint qualifying because that is when it locks out. Obviously, I know sprint qualifying is sprint in general is not involved in the predictions themselves. All these predictions are for Grand Prix. However, because it's a timed session and it kind of starts giving you an insight into where quality in the race might go, that is why we lock it a little bit earlier. So just make sure you keep an eye on it for that.
I can confirm it is on Friday night. It is 8:30 local time, which is 5:30 UK time.
I did a thing. I remembered a thing.
Good work.
Head to backofthegrid.com. Go get involved. Right, last little bit for us.
Yes.
Keep me saying now. Stay out. Box. Hey, man.
First this week from Paul, who says, "Hey man, do McLaren have to get Oscar to help Lando now to stop Max having a chance of winning the title?"
I don't think they have to, because as we've already sort of said in the permutations, like he really just needs to outscore them both by 2 points. So it's still very much in his hands. I think the precedent that McLaren have set themselves means that if they were, say, first and second, but it was Piastri first and Lando second, they're not going to switch them because they've already set themselves a precedent. And if they do, I will be quite surprised. I think as long as it's not a scenario where Max is winning the race and they're 9th and 10th, I think that they don't do anything about it realistically whilst it's where it is.
Yeah, I think
they might do something in Abu Dhabi, but I just can't see him doing anything in Qatar.
No, as long as he's mathematically in it, I think they'll stick with it. And also, this is going to sound pretty harsh, but given where Piastri has been in the running order compared to Norris and Verstappen in recent races, I'm not sure what he could do to help, short of them leaving him out on old tyres to like slow up Verstappen. It's not like he's really been in the fight on track with him, and that might sound harsh, but it's...
Well, I mean, in terms of the last few races, that's
yeah,
out, isn't it? So
I mean, Piastri's not been on the podium since Monza still.
Yeah.
That's 6 races in a row now without a podium.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of it, to be fair, that will he be even close enough to the pair of them to be able to help, even if they wanted him to. So yeah, Ben says, "Hey man, I'm going to go out on a short limb and predict Max will win all the remaining races." I'm with you there, Ben. My question is, assuming that Lando Norris doesn't DNF or get disqualified again, what positions does he realistically need to be able to win the World Drivers' Championship? Would second in every race still get him the chocolates? So
someone online has actually built a little web app that will tell us the answer to this. It's called Last 4 Races, and it's basically you can play around with results to work out the championship calculator.
Yeah.
Things currently stand. So we've got this Qatar Sprint, Qatar race, and Abu Dhabi race. Second in all 3 of them will be enough for Lando to be champion.
Yep.
Third in all 3 of them is enough for Lando to be champion. 4th would not be enough. The worst results Lando can have now and still be champion is 3rd in both the races and 4th in the sprint.
Yeah.
Now, there's versions as well where they end up tied on points. Then we get into count back, and there's so many variations of that.
My favourite right now, this is the one I think I posted in Discord earlier when we were all playing around with this and discussing it. But my favourite right now is Verstappen wins everything that's left. I'm still very much eggs in that basket there. That is just going to happen. And then you've got something like Norris second in the sprint, but 4th in the Grand Prix, and then 3rd in Abu Dhabi. Well, it doesn't matter which way those 2 Grand Prix results are, 3rd in one, 4th in the other. That gets them exactly tied at the end of the season on 4-2-4 each. And it goes to race win count back, which if Max has won everything that's left, he's on 6 wins to Norris's 7.
No, 7. They're both on 7 currently.
Both on 7. Oh, okay, so it's fine either way. So, yeah, but that was like the permutation I liked. But then I think Sarah came up with a pretty interesting one, which managed to get them tied going into Abu Dhabi, which was Verstappen winning, but Norris having a DNF in Qatar, basically, and getting a bit of a lowly, like having a really bad weekend in Qatar. In my opinion, slightly less likely, but all as much interesting. Like, in fact, it actually made all 3 of them tied exactly on 3 points, which I thought would be quite comical to have had 23 races through a season and then just basically go, well, none of that mattered because you're all on exactly the same points going into the final race, so this is the only one that counts, really. Like, that would be quite a comical scenario, although highly unlikely based on the results that are needed. It is a very comical one. So if you have time to go on last 4 races as a little mini app and play with it, please do, because it's fun.
Yeah,
you can
Lando
make your own permutations.
Yeah. But yeah, Lando basically just needs to keep doing what he has been doing, which is sticking it on the podium. He's got the most podiums of the 3 of them, so if he can keep doing that, he'll be all right.
Realistically, 3 podium finishes across the races is enough, right? That's what we were saying. So definitely. As long as he's on the podium for every one of the 3 races, that's just enough for him, even if Max wins everything.
Yep. Last question from Keith, who says, "Hi guys, with us now coming to the end of this generation of cars, we've been told over the years that teams value winning the team's championship over the driver's title. In recent times, however, Red Bull have seemed to design and build a car that only Max can drive, therefore seeming to value the driver's title more. Do you think this will change with the new generation under their new team principle?"
I would say probably to some degree. I think seasons like this highlight that as good as Max is, he could really do with a teammate that is able to get results out of the car and help it. Like the last 2 seasons where he's been the only one scoring realistic points for Red Bull have had Lando and Norris creep up on him at the end of last season. And I mean, I know obviously it ended up being quite comfortable for Max by the end, but the threat was there, mainly because they didn't have a teammate to be a rear gunner and back him up. And then this year, if that other Red Bull had been scoring similar points and results to Max, even though they've had the blip partway through the season, if Tsunoda was now getting on the podium alongside Max because he was able to get the same results out of the car, then this title could have already swung in his favour and he could be the one going away leading it, because the weekends that McLaren have had between them, the points that Tsunoda or somebody else in that car could have taken away would have possibly swung things in Max's favour. So even from a driver's perspective, I think they need to concentrate on, yes, let's try and get it to suit Max's style wherever we can because he's our lead driver, but not at the detriment that the other driver cannot score points in it. And I think they've got to find a balance. But Mekis is the kind of guy that I think will find a balance in that regard. I mean, look at the change in form for them just generally since he's been in there. And I know he might not be solely responsible for that, but I definitely think there's a way in he's running the team and managing the team that has led to at least part of this resurgence, even if it was just having the balls to turn around and say, this is not working, we need to take some upgrades off and go back to where Max was happy and start again from there. Even if it was just making a decision like that, it worked, and it's got him within a win of being able to clinch a title again. Mekis will be always hailed as a genius, I think, if between him and Max, they essentially pull this off.
Yeah, totally. So. I've definitely got more faith in the current Red Bull setup to build a car and a environment where a second driver can have some success for sure.
Yeah. I'm less concerned for Hadjar going into next year as it keeps.
We're just assuming,
it's looking like that will happen. So, I mean, whether it is that they stick with Tsunoda or whether it is they go a completely different direction, I'm more confident going into next year for whoever the second driver ends up being, just because of the way the team appears to be run now. And I think they'll be able to come out of the gates with a decent car next year, even if they are moving to their own powertrains officially for the first time and kind of starting that journey. I think they'll have been doing quite a lot of focus on making sure that doesn't flop. So I think what they come out of the gates with should be pretty strong.
Yeah. I mean, without getting too deep into the weeds, a huge amount's going to depend on their engine next year, which is such an unknown given the changes. But I think it'd be foolish
for everyone
to count
to a certain degree, isn't it? Like,
it is.
You know, everyone's had to change their engines. I know that there's teams. I know it's only like a power balance to a certain degree, and we're just going more 50-50 split in terms of electronic-based power to combustion engine power, but even still, I think that Red Bull are not the kind of team to half-arse things. generally speaking. Like, they go out and get the best people to do the jobs, and I'm sure they will have great minds working on that engine, and then
yeah, for sure,
great engineers in terms of working out how the car then works around that engine. So I'm not saying they're going to come out and just absolutely smash a title. If anything, I don't want them to. I want it to be fairly equal, where, you know, the Mercedes looks good, the McLaren looks good, the Ferrari looks good, and the Red Bull looks good, and you've got that like nice mix. Even for teams like Cadillac who are coming in, and Audi taking over from Sauber, etc., like, you kind of want it to start out pretty close. I don't want like a new era where you got Mercedes hitting the ground running and just absolutely destroying everybody, or Red Bull absolutely destroying everyone from an aero perspective. You want like a bit of a... And I don't even mind if it is like one car is a bit stronger on aero and one car's a bit stronger on power and one car's a bit stronger in mechanical grip, and that's kind of what you want, where each team's got a little bit of a niche that's theirs, and different circuits you go to and you think, ooh, this is going to be a Mercedes track this weekend, or this is going to be a Red Bull track this weekend, and you've genuinely got stuff that's that close, but you know that each car's going to have its own little edge in certain scenarios, like kind of like on Mario Kart, where everyone's got a little bar and an even number of points distributed, and some people are fast but not good at corners, and some people are good at corners but not very fast. That's what you want.
What we want. Yeah, exactly. Right, on that note, I think that will wrap us up for another very exciting race week. We'll be back this time next week to discuss the whole weekend in Qatar. Maybe crown a world champion, maybe not. We will see. In the meantime, you can go to backthegrid.com to find out how to get in touch with us, play the predictions game, all of that stuff. Patreon.com/backthegrid to find out how to join our Discord community. I think that is everything. So until next time, thank you very much for joining us, and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.